In June 2017, a man was found unresponsive in a desert parking area in North Phoenix, Arizona. Years later, an unexpected tip from Mexico brought the breakthrough. Evan Paulos was born on July 1, 1991, in Iraq. When he was only 4 years old, his family made the difficult decision to flee their homeland. Leaving behind everything they knew in search of safety, they arrived in the United States with hopes of starting over, free from the constant fear and destruction of war. Eventually, they settled in Phoenix. As the years passed, Evan grew into a young man known for his warmth and generosity. He possessed a gentle nature that drew people toward him and was often described as someone who treated everyone with respect and kindness. Evan's passion for cars became a defining part of his life. He spent countless hours working on engines, perfecting his skills, and dreaming of opening his own mechanic shop one day. It was more than just a career goal. It was his way of giving back to his mother, who had sacrificed everything to give him a better life. As his 26th birthday approached on July 1, 2017, Evan felt hopeful about the future. During this time, Evan maintained a friendship with Michael Anthony Arredondo. Their connection seemed ordinary, built on mutual interests and shared experiences. On June 3rd, everything took a tragic turn. While traveling with his friend Michael, what began as a routine outing quickly escalated into a violent confrontation. At some point during their drive, an argument broke out and the situation spiraled out of control. The altercation continued after they stopped near the desert area by Pinnacle Peak Road and Cave Creek Road in North Phoenix, where Evan fought desperately for his life. Not long after, Evan was discovered unresponsive in a remote desert parking lot under the scorching Arizona sun. Responding officers immediately recognized the scene as a crime scene. Evidence revealed the sheer brutality of the attack. Evan had been stabbed repeatedly around 30 times in what the authorities described as a vicious and personal assault. The police summaries later confirmed that signs of a struggle were present both inside the vehicle and outside of it, suggesting that the assault had started while Evan was still in the car and continued after he tried to escape. The nature of the scene immediately led the investigators to believe that this was not a random act of violence or robbery, but a confrontation driven by emotion, possibly between people who knew each other. Among the physical evidence collected that day were items connected to a vehicle tied to the suspect. The authorities later reported that blood and a kitchen knife had been discovered in an abandoned car believed to have been used in the aftermath of the crime. Though the trail initially went cold, these findings became crucial pieces of evidence that allowed the investigators to keep the case active within the cold case units. The investigators later learned that the suspect may have fled Arizona, possibly living in California and then Mexico. But without sufficient evidence, they could not move forward. The files remained with the cold case unit for years until one unexpected tip would later breathe new life into the investigation. Public awareness also played a key role. Fundraising pages and local news coverage kept Evan's name in the public eye, creating an avenue for someone with information to come forward. Eventually, a person in Mexico contacted the family's GoFundMe page, claiming to know the whereabouts of the alleged perpetrator and providing a photograph and location details that the investigators could verify. This tip became the turning point that moved the case from cold to active. In mid-October 2025, after 8 years went by, Phoenix police announced the arrest of 34-year-old Michael Arredondo. Arredondo was taken into custody in Mexico and extradited to the United States, with the authorities booking him on suspicion of first-degree slaying. Evan's sister, Avienne Paulos, recounted how she confirmed the tip with the individual who reached out, saying, "I told him, please, I do not know if this is a scam or not. Can you send me some kind of evidence, send me a picture?" And it was him, Arredondo. He was just living life for 8 years. The police emphasized that their persistence never wavered. Officer said, "I think it sends a strong message to the community that even with the passage of time, we are still looking for you. We are still hunting you down." Working with Mexican officials, the U.S. Marshals Service, and the Maricopa County Attorney's Office, the authorities located and detained Arredondo before arranging his transfer back to Arizona. After his arrest, Arredondo reportedly admitted to stabbing Evan, although he did not provide a clear motive. The bond amount were set at $1.5 million, and the prosecutors said that they would continue building the case to determine precise charges and any aggravating factors. The family expressed relief that someone was finally in custody, while emphasizing their ongoing need for answers about why the fatal attack occurred. In February 2017, a 43-year-old man failed to return home in New York. The case went cold for years until authorities uncovered new evidence, including a recorded phone call. Omid Golian was born in 1966. He came from an Iranian background and was part of the Iranian Jewish community. At the age of 51, Omid had built a steady life for himself. His career placed him within the bustling environment of Manhattan, where he worked in a jewelry store. The store sat on the corner of Church and Duane Streets, a location within the Tribeca neighborhood. Working in that setting meant interacting with a wide range of people each day. On February 14, 2017, Omid's family became increasingly worried when he did not return home, and their concern grew as more time passed with no word from him. Realizing something was wrong, his brother filed a missing person report. This step marked the beginning of the formal search as the family hoped for answers about his sudden disappearance. The following day, both family members and the police went to the jewelry store where Omid worked. When they arrived, they found the shop locked, which immediately raised their concern. Using a key provided by the family, the officers entered the store to look for any sign of him, focusing on the possibility that he had remained inside for reasons they did not yet know. Inside the store, Omid was found in the back area, deceased. He was discovered with zip ties around his neck, and the authorities noted additional injuries, including bruising near his eye and a wound on his head. While the details were difficult for his family to process, the police documented the scene carefully to understand what had occurred. Despite the nature of the situation, there were no indications that the store had been robbed. Cash and merchandise remained in place, and the shop was locked from the outside with no signs of forced entry. These factors added to the complexity of determining what had led to his demise. The medical examiner ultimately ruled the case a slaying, listing the cause of demise as neck compression involving zip ties. With these findings, the focus shifted to uncovering how the events unfolded and who may have been involved. Investigators continued gathering information, but progress proved difficult. As time passed, the case grew increasingly challenging. Although there had been some suspicion directed toward an employee, no definitive conclusion was reached. With limited evidence and no clear answers emerging, the investigation eventually went cold, leaving Omid's family without closure and the circumstances of his demise unresolved. Years later, the investigators reviewed surveillance footage from the store and examined travel records connected to an employee, Michael Patrick Diesel. Through this process, they discovered that only hours after the crime, he had purchased a one-way ticket and left New York. He flew out of JFK Airport to his home country, Mauritius, a detail that immediately stood out. The authorities obtained a secretly recorded phone call involving Michael while he was abroad. In that call, he claimed that Omid was still alive when he left the store and suggested that another worker could have been responsible. Rather than clearing him, the call raised further red flags due to the timing and the circumstances surrounding his departure from the country. The combination of his role as an employee, the method involved in the crime, and his rapid disappearance strengthened suspicions as travel data and the sequence of events were aligned. These findings ultimately led authorities to pursue formal action. In May 2025, it was announced that DeSalle had been extradited back to New York. He was then officially charged with secondary slaying in connection with Omid's demise. This development marked the most substantial progress the case had seen since it had gone cold. At his arraignment, Dawes entered a plea of not guilty. He is currently being held without bail while the legal process moves forward. Following the announcement of the charges, the police authorities expressed their hope that Omid's family might find some comfort in knowing that the suspect would finally face accountability in New York. In July 2025, a human leg was discovered near Springfield, Tennessee. It was linked to a decades-old cold case. Joseph Frank Benton found himself repeatedly on the wrong side of the law. He became involved in multiple criminal cases, steadily building a reputation that eventually landed him on the most wanted list in Robertson County, Tennessee. His offenses were severe and varied, encompassing both sexual and violent crimes. Among the charges that made him a high-priority target for law enforcement were accusations of sexual exploitation of a minor. The authorities had reason to believe that his criminal behavior was not isolated, but part of a pattern of ongoing violations. These allegations alone would have made him a figure of serious concern in his community. In March 2024, law enforcement executed a raid on Benton's property, uncovering a disturbing collection of evidence. Among the items discovered was a photograph dating back 20 years depicting a minor engaged in sexual activity. The discovery of this image triggered a wave of legal action against him, amplifying the severity of the charges he already faced. The raid also revealed a substantial cache of weapons and explosives. These findings resulted in dozens of additional charges, including unlawful possession of weapons. Combined with existing probation violations, the new charges painted a portrait of a man who had consistently ignored the law and placed himself at great risk of serious legal consequences. Despite the mounting evidence against him, Benton did not appear to understand the danger that lay ahead. Benton Sr. and his family were connected to a long-standing missing persons case that had haunted Robertson County for over 2 decades. Jennifer Wicks and her 2-year-old daughter, Adriana Wicks, vanished in March 2004, leaving a trail of questions that remained unanswered for years. Their disappearance drew significant attention from law enforcement, but yielded few concrete leads. At the time of their disappearance, Jennifer and Adriana were living with Jennifer's boyfriend, who happened to be Benton Sr.'s son, Joey. This connection placed the Benton family under scrutiny as the investigators sought to piece together the events surrounding the Wicks family's sudden and unexplained disappearance. Benton Sr. himself became a person of interest in the cold case investigations. Law enforcement identified him as one of the last known individuals to see Jennifer and Adriana alive, raising questions about his potential involvement. His criminal history further complicated the investigation, casting a shadow over the Benton family. Over 2 decades later, the case took a chilling turn. On July 4, 2025, a human leg was discovered in Sulphur Fork Creek near Springfield, Tennessee. The discovery reignited public interest in both Benton Sr. and the unresolved Wicks case, prompting renewed investigative efforts. By mid-August 2025, DNA analysis confirmed that the remains belonged to Joseph Frank Benton, Sr. The investigators faced new questions about the circumstances of his demise and its possible connections to past events. Despite the confirmation of his identity, the cause of Benton Sr.'s demise has not been publicly disclosed. The authorities have also not confirmed whether foul play was involved, leaving both the community and investigators to grapple with uncertainty. Demise of Benton Sr. has reignited public and investigative interest in the long unsolved Wicks disappearance case. Many questions remain, particularly regarding his property, which the authorities acknowledge has never been fully searched. The potential connection between the land, Benton's demise, and lingering evidence from the cold case has drawn renewed attention from law enforcement. The investigators then reviewed possible links between Benton Sr.'s property and the unresolved Wicks case. Every corner of the land is being re-examined for clues that may have been overlooked in previous searches. Experts hope that a fresh look at the property, combined with modern forensic methods, could yield new evidence critical to solving the decades-old mystery. In October 2025, a startling discovery added urgency to the investigation. A young boy found a human skull near Sulphur Fork Creek, the same area where Benton Sr.'s remains were discovered months earlier. This discovery prompted immediate action from the authorities, who launched additional searches in the surrounding area. The Wicks family, deeply invested in uncovering the truth, joined the authorities in searching the Springfield Greenway site. During their efforts, they reported finding additional human remains, further intensifying the sense of urgency in the cold case. Each new discovery underscored the unresolved nature of the investigation and the possibility that critical evidence had been overlooked for years. The Wicks case had been reclassified from a missing persons investigation to a slaying case in 2013. Despite multiple searches of the Benton family's property over the years, no human remains had been recovered prior to the July 2025 discovery of 68-year-old Benton Sr.'s body. These repeated, fruitless searches only added to the mystery surrounding both the disappearance and Benton's potential role. As of now, no charges have been filed directly linking Benton Sr. to the Wicks disappearance. Nevertheless, the investigators continue to scrutinize every detail of his life, property, and connections to the Wicks family. Public interest and law enforcement attention remain high, with the case poised for further developments as authorities probe both the past and the implications of Benton Sr.'s demise. The Wicks family provided a statement. Our family is aware that the human leg found in Springfield in July has been identified as Joseph Frank Benton, one of the 3 people to last see Jennifer and Adriana alive in March of 2004. We offer our prayers to the investigators as they find out the cause and who is responsible for his demise. We pray that this may lead them closer to solving the case of Jennifer and Adriana. In September 2011, bores on the Mississippi River made a discovery that would haunt Winona for more than a decade. On September 5, 2011, bores discovered a deceased newborn girl in the Mississippi River, roughly 7 mi south of Winona. The infant had been placed inside a bag that also contained porcelain angel figurines, an unusual detail that immediately drew attention. The discovery marked the beginning of a case that would become one of the area's most haunting mysteries. The baby was found wrapped in a green t-shirt, enclosed within 2 brown plastic garbage bags, and then placed inside a canvas tote bag from a Mexican resort. Alongside her were several glass angel figurines, a pendant, incense, and other small items. These objects contributed to the investigators giving the child the nickname Baby Angel, a name that stayed with the case as it moved forward. The authorities began their investigation immediately, working to understand what had happened to the infant and who had placed her in the river. They examined the items in the bag, the condition of the clothing, and the location where she was found. Every detail was treated as a potential lead, but nothing in the early stages pointed clearly to a responsible individual. An autopsy revealed that the newborn had likely been born only a day or two before being discovered. The umbilical cord remained attached, and it appeared to have been cut with a sharp instrument rather than by a medical professional. These findings suggested that the birth took place outside a medical setting, leaving the investigators with more questions than answers. Despite the extensive work done by law enforcement, progress remained slow. The investigators tested dozens of potential parents using DNA comparisons, hoping one of the results would reveal the identity of the child or her biological family. Each test represented a new line of hope, but none provided the breakthrough they urgently needed. As time passed, the case grew colder, and baby Angel's identity remained unknown. For many years, the investigators had no indication of who the baby's mother might be, leaving the case at a standstill. After 12 years, in March 2023, law enforcement partnered with Firebird Forensics Group, a nonprofit specializing in genetic genealogy, to identify unknown remains. Using genealogical data, Firebird was able to narrow down possible biological connections. Their analysis ultimately pointed to Jennifer Nicole Beckley as a potential relative, giving investigators their first significant break in years. After this development, officials approached Jennifer for a DNA sample, and she responded by retaining an attorney. To move the investigation forward, the officers collected material from her trash and submitted it to the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. Testing confirmed that the infant found in the river was biologically Jennifer's child, allowing the authorities to finally connect her to the case. Relatives provided additional confirmation by identifying the blue pendant found with baby Angel. They immediately recognized the item and stated it belonged to Jennifer. They also told the investigators that she collected angel figurines and purchased an angel ornament each Christmas. According to these relatives, they had not been in contact with her at the time and said she had been living in a van in 2011. Jennifer was born in 1982 in Winona, Minnesota. She went on to attend Winona State University, where she completed her studies and later returned as an adjunct faculty member teaching English. From 2008 to 2010, Jennifer took her career overseas, living in Kazakhstan as a teacher-trainer through the U.S. Peace Corps. Jennifer returned to Winona in December 2010 and continued her life as a dedicated community member. She became a longtime resident, deeply involved in the city's cultural and social life. Her personal life included marriage and raising 2 children, grounding her experiences in family life. Her presence in Winona was well known, particularly through her work in the performing arts. Jennifer volunteered at local music festivals and fundraisers. Additionally, she served as a volunteer board member for the Bluff Country Coop, demonstrating a commitment to local initiatives through 2024. Despite her outwardly stable and community-centered life, Jennifer was on the brink of making choices that would alter her path dramatically. The years of involvement, teaching, and volunteering would precede a period in which her actions would unexpectedly shift the trajectory of her life. On April 24, 2025, Jennifer was arrested in Winona County. She was charged with 2 counts of secondary manslaughter in connection with the newborn's demise. The arrest marked a major turning point in a case that had remained cold for more than a decade, finally giving the authorities someone to hold accountable. Following the arrest, a detective addressed the community's long wait for answers. The detective stated that for over 13 years, baby Angel's demise had weighed heavily on Winona, and that the infant deserved more than the circumstances she was found in. Jennifer appeared in court for a bail hearing. A judge set unconditional bail at $200,000, and a lower conditional bail was set at $20,000. Conditions of the bail were that Jennifer wear a GPS monitoring device and that she does not leave Minnesota. Although the investigators still do not have every answer, they emphasized that they now know who is responsible. The charges filed, they said, represent the first step toward holding Jennifer accountable. Winona County Attorney Karen Sonneman said, "At this time, she is the only parent who came up. Obviously, there is a father out there somewhere, but at this time the forensics only identified her." In February 2007, a 49-year-old independent woman went quiet in North Providence, Rhode Island. Modern DNA and handwriting analysis finally brought closure to her family years later. Cynthia McKenna was born around 1957 or 1958 and lived most of her adult life in North Providence, Rhode Island. At 49 years old, she lived alone in an apartment complex where she maintained a modest but self-sufficient lifestyle. Cynthia's personal life, however, was marked by instability and financial struggle. She had a contentious and at times violent relationship with Robert J. Corey Jr., a man who was known to lend money but also had a volatile temper. The relationship between the two had soured badly by early 2007, and neighbors frequently overheard loud arguments and confrontations between them. Despite their falling out, Cynthia still owed Robert money. Friends later told the investigators that she had grown fearful of him, but did not think he would harm her. Unfortunately, her instincts would prove tragically wrong in the days leading up to her demise in February 2007. Unlike many cold cases, Cynthia McKenna's disappearance did not begin with a long search. She was found deceased in her own home just days after she was last seen alive. According to investigative reports, Cynthia was last seen alive around February 19, 2007, when neighbors spotted her returning to her apartment. When Cynthia failed to answer her phone or respond to knocks on her door for several days, concerned friends contacted the authorities for a welfare check. On February 21st, the police entered her apartment and made a grim discovery. Cynthia was lying on her bed, unresponsive and partially covered with clear signs of asphyxiation. The scene immediately indicated foul play. Officers observed that a sock had been forced into her mouth, tissues placed in her nostrils, and 2 pillows pressed over her face. The brutality of the method suggested a personal motive. The Rhode Island Medical Examiner's Office confirmed that Cynthia had lost her life due to asphyxiation, consistent with intentional suffocation. There were no signs of forced entry into the apartment, suggesting that she had willingly allowed her perpetrator inside. The evidence pointed strongly towards someone she knew and trusted enough to let in voluntarily. The investigators collected forensic samples from the scene, including fibers, DNA traces, and a handwritten note later identified as a confession letter. The note appeared to be written by Robert, her former partner and creditor, who was already known to the police for prior domestic violence incidents. Though the letter contained an admission of guilt, forensic testing at the time was inconclusive. DNA found on the envelope provided only a probable match to Corey. Without solid forensic proof, the investigators lacked enough evidence to prosecute, leaving the case to stagnate as the years passed. As the years went by, new technologies offered hope for resolution. After 16 years in 2023, the Rhode Island Attorney General's Cold Case Unit reopened Cynthia's file. They applied ysDRDNA testing, a genetic analysis method that traces male lineage to the DNA recovered from the confession letter envelope. In 2024, that DNA testing produced a breakthrough. The genetic material on the envelope matched that of a male relative of Robert Corey, confirming that Corey himself had sealed and sent the letter. Combined with handwriting analysis that identified Corey as the author, the investigators finally had conclusive proof that he wrote the confession. Further review of Corey's timeline revealed gaps in his alibi around February 19, 2007, precisely when Cynthia was last seen alive. Taken together, the DNA link, handwriting match, motive, money, and rage, and opportunity painted a clear picture. Corey ended Cynthia's life, likely in a fit of anger after a financial or personal dispute. Unfortunately, Corey had lost his life in 2014, preventing any criminal charges. On October 31, 2025, the Rhode Island Attorney General's office announced that the Cold Case Unit had conclusively identified Corey as Cynthia's perpetrator. Attorney General Peter Naranjo praised the team's use of modern forensic science. The authorities emphasized that while Corey cannot be prosecuted, the finding brought long-awaited closure to Cynthia's loved ones. Cynthia's daughter, Jacqueline, spoke at the news conference to what this closure means to her and her family. She said her life mattered and always will.